In this video, we're going to review what life cycle types indicate, the types of assets they're most likely used for, and finally, what each life cycle type's API graph looks like for an individual asset of that class within the risk module. To begin with, life cycle types refer to the graphing functionality of asset condition and subsequent likelihood of failure. They're selected within the asset plan module when you're first setting up the assets class. This information is also editable at any given time. You'll be able to see the impact of updating these lifecycle types anywhere you can see a graph related to the API of any particular assets associated with that class. For example, you'll be able to see the graph within the Asset Manager dashboard and the Risk module. Let's go ahead and start getting into the different available lifecycle type options. First, though, we'll talk about linear lifecycle types. Once selected in the asset plan here, assets that fall under that class have API graphs that look accordingly in the risk module. Linear lifecycle types indicate maintaining consistent ACI increases throughout the asset's lifecycle. This is the current and existing functionality within the NEXGEN system and the default option when creating a new asset plan. Next, we'll talk about curve lifecycle types. When selected as the second option down here, assets that fall under this class have API graphs that look like this in the risk module. Curve lifecycle types indicate a gradual ACI degradation. This type is most used for mechanical assets, such as pumps, motors, and valves. Third in our list of options, we'll talk about cliff lifecycle types. When selected in the asset plan here, again, we can see what assets associated with that class have API graphs that look like in the risk module. Cliff lifecycle types indicate a steady ACI, followed by a drastic drop-off in ACI toward the end of the asset's life. This type is most useful for electrical or instrumentation assets, such as panels, transformers, transmitters, flow meters, and temperature sensors. Next up is the arch lifecycle type. Again, once selected here in the asset plan, we'll see the associated graph in the risk module. This indicates a steady ACI followed by a sharper arching decline toward the end of the asset's life. This type is most used for structural and infrastructure assets such as buildings, pipes, roofs, and tunnels. Finally, we have the inverse lifecycle type as our last available option in this list. As reflected by our API graph in the risk module, this type indicates a significant early ACI degradation, followed by a steady ACI toward the end of the asset's life. This type is most used for technology assets, such as computers or phones. In this video, we reviewed our new available lifecycle types to be set up within an individual class's asset plan. They include our linear type, matching existing functionality, curve for mechanical assets, cliff for electrical and instrumentation assets, arch for structural and infrastructural assets, and finally, inverse for technology assets.